If you were looking for a low-cost credit card that can pay for all of your dining purchases, then this is going to be a great video to watch, because in this video, I'm going to be doing a full comparison of the Capital One Savor One and the Capital One Savor, which are two of the very best low-cost dining credit cards. And I'll give my thoughts on which credit card you should get based on your own situation, and also which credit card I would get and why. So as always, we're just gonna jump right into the video, so make sure to hit that like button and subscribe down below, as it helps support the channel and I would really appreciate it. But without further ado, let's just jump right into the video. Okay, so to start this video, I'm going to give a quick overview of both the Capital One Savor One and the Capital One Savor. And then I'll get into some of their similarities and differences. And then after that, I'll talk about some reasons to get each of these credit cards depending on your own situation. I'll talk about which credit card I would get and why, and also which credit cards I would pair this card with. Okay, so first things first, if we start with an overview of the Capital One Savor One credit card, this card does not have an annual fee, yet it still does offer a welcome bonus of $200 cash back if you're able to spend $500 or more in the first 3 months of having the card, which is a pretty standard welcome bonus offer for a no annual fee credit card. And then what makes the Capital One Savor One a great option is the really solid multipliers that this card has, especially being a card that does not have an annual fee. The multipliers on the Capital One Savor One credit card are going to be 5x back on hotels and car rentals that are booked through the Capital One travel portal, 3x back on dining, 3x back on entertainment, 3x back on popular streaming services, and 3x back on grocery stores. And then Capital One is also running a partnership through January 31st of 2023, in which you'll get 8x back on purchases at Vivid Seats or on Capital One Entertainment. Part of the reason that these point multipliers are so strong is because of how broad these categories are, and I will discuss this a little bit further when I discuss some of the similarities between these two credit cards. In addition to the point multipliers, the Capital One Savor One credit card will also give you some other benefits such as no foreign transaction fees, travel accident insurance, and extended warranty protection. Alright, if we switch gears and give a brief overview of the Capital One Savor card, this card has an annual fee of $95, and then the welcome bonus on this card is going to be to receive $300 cash back if you're able to spend $3,000 or more in the first 3 months of having the card. The elevated multipliers on the Capital One Savor are going to be 5x back on hotels and car rentals booked through the Capital One travel portal, 4x back on dining, popular streaming services, and entertainment, and then 3x back on grocery stores. Just like the Capital One Savor One, you'll get 8x back on Vivid Seats and Capital One Entertainment through January 31st of 2023, and then you'll also get other benefits like no foreign transaction fees, travel accident insurance, and extended warranty protection. Okay, so now if we get into some of the similarities and differences on the Savor and Savor One, I'll start with the similarities. First, both of these cards are going to be low-cost cards. They're going to give you some really solid multipliers, and part of the reason that those point multipliers are so good is because of how broad those point multipliers are. As an example, both cards give you an elevated multiplier for dining, and that category pretty much covers any place that you can order food. And both cards are going to give you an elevated multiplier for entertainment, and that entertainment category is going to cover a bunch of different things, such as movie theaters, bowling alleys, sporting events, tourist activities, and more. Finally, both cards are going to give you an elevated multiplier for streaming, and that streaming category is going to cover pretty much all of the major streaming services, such as Netflix, Hulu, ESPN Plus, and Disney Plus. Next, another similarity that both of these cards have is that they allow you to start to build a relationship with Capital One, so you can get a card like the Capital One Venture X in the future. But now, if we get into some of the key differences between these two credit cards, the Capital One Savor One does not have an annual fee, whereas the Capital One Savor does have an annual fee of $95. And essentially what you're paying for with that additional $95 fee is that instead of getting 3x back, you'll get 4x back in the categories of dining, popular streaming services, and entertainment. Later in this video, I will discuss whether I think that is worth it when I discuss which of these credit cards I would get and why. Okay, so now you know the core details on the Capital One Savor One and the Capital One Savor. It's time to discuss which of these credit cards you should get depending on your own situation. So if you don't already have some other credit cards that cover the dining category, and maybe dining is one of your highest spend categories, then it may be worth it to get the $95 Capital One Savor card for that 4x back on dining. And if maybe you want a really high multiplier for dining, but you want a cheaper alternative to a card like the Amex Gold card, which has an annual fee of $250, then this could be another reason to go with the Capital One Savor. But the Capital One Savor One is going to have a lot of the same benefits as the Capital One Savor, except for the fact that you'll get 3x back instead of 4x back in some of those categories like dining. So if you were okay with just getting a little bit less cash back, but also being able to avoid that $95 annual fee, then I would definitely go with the Capital One Savor One credit card. And if you are someone who is simply prioritizing no annual fee credit cards at this time, well then there's absolutely nothing wrong with that. And I actually think that's a great strategy, especially when you're first starting out. And if that is your strategy, then that's another reason to go with the Capital One Savor One. And if you already have some other credit cards that give you exposure to a high multiplier for dining, then go with the Capital One Savor One, because you can still get some benefits from the other point multipliers without having to pay that $95 annual fee. Okay, so if I was in this situation and I had to pick between the Capital One Savor and the Capital One Savor One, I would go with the Capital One Savor One, and there's a couple of reasons for that. First, getting the Capital One Savor One would stay consistent with my strategy of prioritizing no annual fee credit cards. Second, I think there's a lot of other good mid-tier credit cards that are out there on the market that I do plan to get in the future, such as the American Express Gold Card, that also give you high multipliers for dining. And lastly, unlike some other mid-tier credit cards that are out there, the Capital One Savor does not have any specific credits that can help to lower your effective fee on that card. Ultimately, in my opinion, it just doesn't make much sense to me in my own situation to spend $95 on a credit card when I could get a credit card that has virtually the same benefits for not paying anything. But regardless on whether you choose the Capital One Savor or the Capital One Savor One, there are some other credit cards that you want to pair these cards with to optimize the amount of value that you can get from one of the Savor cards. Those cards are going to be either the Capital One Venture or the Capital One Venture X. The reason for this is because the Capital One Savor cards are technically cashback cards, but you do have the option to transfer your points from that Savor card to one of the Venture cards. And the Venture cards are travel cards, so they allow you to transfer your points out to Capital One's travel partners, which can basically double the amount of value that you can get. So in conclusion, both the Capital One Savor One and the Capital One Savor are both great low-cost options for dining, but if I had to choose one, I would go with the Capital One Savor One. But let me know down in the comments which card you would choose. But yeah, that'll wrap up this video. If you got any value from this video, then make sure to subscribe to my channel so that you don't miss out on future impactful content. Thank you all so much, and I hope you all have a great day.